This next story is causing quite a stir. It was a major legal victory for the Westboro Baptist Church. By a vote of 8-1, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the church, saying it does have the right to stage anti-gay protests at U.S. military funerals. Justice Roberts wrote that the U.S. has, quote, chosen to protect even hurtful speech on public issues. Now, the church says God is punishing America for the, quote, sin of homosexuality through events including soldiers' deaths. So the question for the Stream team today is, does this go over the line? Do these protests take the First Amendment rights too far? So joining me today to talk about this are John Ellsworth, he is, and Father Albert Coutier, and also our Jeffrey Toobin. Thank you all so much for joining us. Jeffrey's joining us by phone. As you notice, he's not moving there. So, John, listen, your family has been on the receiving end of this. What do you make of this ruling?
Well, it's what we expected. It's unfortunate, but again, First Amendment rights do triumph here. Our main concern with this is we need to make sure we have some guidance in what we can and what we can't allow. How about a little civility? How about some decorum? They expect it in their courtrooms. We would expect it at our military funerals.
So, Father, listen, you consider Westboro, most people don't consider it a legitimate church, okay? But aren't they saying the same thing that's reinforced by religion that's being preached from the pulpit in many churches on Sunday?
I hope not. I hope nobody is hearing that God hates some people, or that even that God hates the activity of some people. I think human beings hate. God teaches us to love, and to love unconditionally. That's the problem that I have. I don't think the First Amendment should protect hatred in the public forum. And I think that's where the law makes its biggest mistake. I think we have to be careful when we say to people, oh, by the way, you have the right to do this. Nobody has the right in the 21st century to propagate hate. And that's what's happening here.
Jeffrey Toobin, I have to ask you, why isn't this considered hate speech? Because hate speech is not protected, is it?
Well, hate speech is a pretty vague term, but any kind of political view, even the most outrageous, is protected by the First Amendment. And if you look at the circumstances of the Snyder family speech, and frankly, I prefer to call this so-called church the Snyder family, because it's really just one crazy family. It's an insult to Baptists, it's an insult to churches to talk about the crazy Snyder family as a church. But they were talking about politics. They were expressing their views, horrible though they are, on matters of public concern in a public space that was not disrupting a funeral, and that is at the core of what the First Amendment protects.
John, did I see you wanting to get in on this?
John wants to get in on this. First of all, it's the Phelps family, the Snyder family. Al Snyder is,
oh, goodness,
is
I'm
a
sorry.
victim in this.
And
I want to make sure we understand it.
Goodness,
it is the Phelps family, and it is just the Phelps family. As an extended, it's not a church. In my view, as an organization, it's actually protected, filed herself under a 501c3 to get that tax break. It's not a church. It is, to me, a hate organization, and I have to agree that this is not what God would want. This is not the way that Christians behave. I actually belong to a Baptist church, and I believe in God. This is not the Christian God that I believe in, and I want to make sure that that's clear. Back to the Snyder case, what we were looking for is some distinction in whether or not it is it is free speech, but how far does it go? It's getting to the point of harassment, and we have to be very careful.
John, let me jump in here, because that's what I wanted to ask Jeffrey. Why isn't this then considered harassment? Because you can say whatever you want, but you can't come into my yard or on my street and start screaming or whatever. You would get arrested for either loitering or disrupting public, or either for harassment. So why isn't this considered at least that, Jeffrey?
Well, let me just repeat my apology that I mixed up the Snyders and the Phelps. It is the Snyders who were the horrible, tragic victims here, and the Phelps were the perpetrators. Now, to answer your question, you have to look at what happened at this funeral. This was a protest by the Phelps family 300 feet from the funeral. It was not disruptive. It did not, it could not be heard at the funeral service. The family, the Snyder family, only found out what was said when they saw the news coverage of the event. So, yes, it might be harassment if they were standing 10 feet away and screaming at the Snyder family. But under the facts of this case, when the protest was at a significant distance away and not disruptive, I don't think you can say it was harassment.
Listen, I want to ask Father Cudier this. Do you think, Father, maybe it's time to maybe Jeffrey, you're the best person to answer, but I have to get Father Cudier in here. Do you think it's time, Father, maybe that we revisit the First Amendment?
We have to revisit it, and we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the difference between free speech and disrespecting other people's basic rights? I think that when you're having a funeral, it is a solemn affair. I don't know why a city or a county would give permission for this type of protest during a funeral.
Okay.
People are denied permits all the time for all other kinds of things. Why can't we deny people a permit when we know they may interfere with something that is sacred and holy, like a funeral, even if it's 300 feet away? It's wrong.
Father Cudier, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ellsworth.